Well, so a very warm welcome. Thank you for coming for this session, which is a celebration of fiction writing in India. And I want to especially celebrate all the authors who submitted their stories to us for the Deodar Prize. So just a little bit about the prize. The Deodar Prize is an attempt to expand the opportunities for creative expression in India. And it's named after the Deodar tree, which is the Himalayan cedar, and that is a native species of trees in India. It's also the official tree of the state of Himachal Pradesh, which is where I was born. So in this year's edition, we are awarding authors for writing stories in the category of English short fiction. And why English, why short, why fiction? So I want to maybe look at the English question first. And I've had this relationship with English and writing, which I think many other Indian authors may have had as well, which is that I think we are a very interesting alloy because we have grown up reading a lot of English literature that comes from the Anglosphere. A lot of our exposure is from that world. But our cultural imagination is steeped in this country, which is multi-everything. I think our culture has invented a third eye just because there is so much to take in when you live in India. So I think there is this struggle for authenticity, which is how do I tell a story that feels real? How do I write in English when many of my characters are probably not actually going to be speaking in English? So how do I have a sense of self-assuredness in my voice? This was also something that we looked at when we were judging the stories. We were trying to see that, is there originality in the story? And can this story really have come out only of India? Could only an Indian writing in English have written something like this? So that was one sort of facet. But the other aspect we tried to balance authenticity and originality with was rigor. And that's sort of where the short part comes in. Because, I'm sure many of you have heard that quote. It's very famous. It's been attributed to so many people, including Mark Twain, to who all quotes are attributed. But it goes something like this, that I would have written, sorry for writing a long letter. If I had more time, I would have written a shorter one. So short form writing is actually really difficult because authors have to place every single word very carefully in order to tell a story in a very compelling way in a short amount of time. And I'm really happy that our winning authors who are here with us today have done just that. But finally, I'm just going to take a minute to talk a little bit about the fiction part. Why fiction? I mean, it may seem a bit obvious because we're at a literature festival, it's very well attended, clearly fiction's doing fine. But I think today the role of stories have gone beyond what it does for the individual reader. I interact with a lot of people in the social sector, and one of the biggest concerns for society today, which I think a lot of you might agree with, is polarization, right? This difficulty in being able to understand another person's point of view. And while many of the NGOs that we work with try to build curriculums, structured exercises, workbooks, and they try to build empathy in children and young adults, I want to sometimes say, can you also add a reading list? Just add some books to this and get people to read more fiction and more books, because anybody who spends time in the skin of flawed characters, anybody who reads about adventures and heartbreak and family dramas, and anyone who reads the beautifully told stories about the absolute mundane, that person will find it hard to put people in neat little tight boxes. So I feel today, I really believe that fiction has a social purpose, and the writers who write these stories really are doing something very important. They need oxygen, and it is my hope that the Deodar Prize can produce some of that oxygen. So thank you very much for joining us in applauding them and celebrating these authors. We have a wonderful panel of jury.